Ottawa is bitterly cold, but the politics of pipelines and religion are as hot as ever. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The Ottawa area is in the deep freeze, but pipeline politics are as hot as ever. With just a week to go before the House of Commons breaks for the holidays, the Conservatives are trying to paint the Liberals into a corner. The Conservatives plan to present a motion in the House of Commons asking all MPs to vote on whether they really do support a pipeline from Alberta to BC and whether they support making changes to the West Coast tanker ban. The move is seen as an attempt to flush out who does and who doesn't support the recent MOU between Ottawa and Alberta. George Sewell is a former NDP strategist, and he's the founder of On Step Strategies. He says the Carney government can't keep saying different things to different people.
Well, I think it's hard now the path they've gone down, to be honest. I think they wanted the announcement, right? So you had Mark Carney standing next to Danielle Smith with a big smile on their face in Calgary, getting the standing ovations and having all those accolades. But again, hadn't done the difficult work to move forward. I mean, Stephen Harper taught us the lesson of trying to jam these things through means you get nothing built. And that, I think, is the lesson that the Liberals should have learned already and now have to relearn. They also need to figure out what they want to do. Like they're trying to play both sides of this, and it's too complicated and too difficult an issue to dance on both sides of the issue, I think. And I think they need to figure that out. They can't keep celebrating the fact they're announcing big projects and try to defend them by saying, don't worry, they're not going to get built in the first place.
There are many opponents to the MOU between Ottawa and Alberta. Some First Nations are strongly opposed to it, especially coastal First Nations, which have vowed they'll launch a legal challenge. At a gathering of chiefs in Ottawa last week, a vote on killing the MOU passed unanimously. Cindy Woodhouse-Nepinak is the national chief of the AFN.
We were standing up for Mother Earth to protect all Canadians, not just First Nations. That is why Chiefs stood united again this week in support of BC coastal First Nations and the oil tanker moratorium law. So we lift up, the coastal First Nations of BC for protecting these territories for time immemorial. As we can recall, in 1973, concerned about the high risk of an oil spill, it was the coastal First Nations that pushed the then First Prime Minister Trudeau to establish a moratorium on oil tanker in the Dixon Entrance and the Queen Charlotte Sound. Fast forward to 2019, and coastal First Nations again led the way when the second Prime Minister Trudeau passed the oil tanker moratorium that extended and strengthened this protection along the coast. So this week, with the coastal lands, waters, and animals under threat again, Chiefs stood strong and united.
One of the Liberal MPs who doubts a new pipeline will ever be built from Alberta to BC is the former Minister of the Environment, Stephen Guilbeault. He resigned from cabinet over the agreement.
I sincerely doubt that a new pipeline will ever get built. We still have carbon pricing, and we will continue having an industrial carbon pricing, but I disagree with some of the fundamental elements in this memorandum of understanding. I think we are putting a lot on the table and getting nothing in return. This idea that we're somehow winning because Alberta is going to increase its industrial price, they need to do that under the federal system anyway. The Pathways project, I believe in carbon capture and storage. The IPCC says we need it, but it's only going to sequester 12% of the oil sands emission. So this idea that we will have decarbonized oil in the Alberta oil sand is not true.
The motion is expected to be introduced tomorrow by the Conservatives. It would be a weird look if some Liberal MPs voted against an agreement signed by their Liberal Prime Minister. Another hot issue in federal politics this week, a cold one in Ottawa, is the Carney government's plan to make changes to anti-hate legislation under Bill C-9. The Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, and the Liberals are all at odds over the Bloc Québécois' desire to end the religious exemption to Canada's hate speech laws. That exemption is part of the criminal code. It allows a person who cites religious beliefs or quotes from a religious text to avoid prosecution for hate speech. The Bloc wants that exemption ended. The leader of the party, Yves-François Blanchet, says he's been told by the Liberals that they support it too.
But we have to stand up and we have to be clear. If we do not want religious affairs to interfere in the affairs of the state, and if we do not want people to use religion to hide and promote hate and violence, as we have seen in recent weeks and months, all the elected persons in this room have to stick to the truth, the facts, what the law would really say, and adopt our amendment very rapidly. If not, there might be a price to be paid.
The Conservatives say ending the exemption to a hate speech crime prosecution for firmly held religious beliefs amounts to an attack on free speech. Larry Brock is a former Crown prosecutor. He's a Conservative MP, and he's a member of the House of Commons Justice Committee. He says every time the committee wants to study this bill, the Liberals cancel the meeting.
We were told to be prepared to sit until midnight. They secured the necessary resources. I wasn't there personally, but I was told what transpired. A number of faith leaders found out what was going on in our Justice Committee, decided to watch the proceedings. They saw them come in to the committee room. Within minutes, the chair had abruptly ended the meeting at 5:30. So they can't have it both ways. In the House yesterday, a Liberal member, forget her name offhand, but she's part of the Justice Committee, asked a question to the Secretary of State, wanting to know why the Conservatives are filibustering, why the Conservatives are not placing a priority on the passage of C9. Secretary of State said, well, we're hopeful that this Thursday, meaning today, we would actually get to clause by clause. We're here to work.
The Liberal MP Anthony Housefather, who is Jewish and has been dealing with a rise in anti-Semitism in his Montreal area riding, says the change to the anti-hate law is much needed.
I'm not spooked. This is a really important bill for Canada. This is a really important bill for communities that I represent. This is a bill that will keep people safer. It is a bill that will be tough on crime, and I support it, and I think we can make it better at committee, and I'm looking forward to that.
The bill is Bill C9. It would criminalize the willful promotion of hatred toward religious and ethnic groups by publicly displaying terror or hate symbols, including the swastika and the symbols of designated terror organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers
on News Radio.
Well, this is supposed to be the final week of the session in the House of Commons, with the House expected to break for the holidays at the end of the week. Joining us to talk about what's been happening in the House with the employment situation in the country. There was a strong jobs report last week, and what the official opposition is planning for votes on pipelines. We're pleased to be joined by Conservative MP Garnett Genuis. His riding is Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan. Welcome back. Good to hear from you today.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be with you today.
Well, on the employment situation, the employment report was out last week. It was surprisingly strong. Tens of thousands of jobs were created. The unemployment rate dropped. The youth unemployment rate went down. What did you think of the jobs report?
Well, we are encouraging people to look deeper into the numbers, because actually we saw a decline in full-time employment. Close to 10,000 full-time jobs were lost. Now, the way these things are measured, the overall employment rate includes part-time. So there was growth in part-time, but loss in full-time. And I don't think this is a good sign. Actually, what this points to is that look, people are in a tight spot. They're looking for work. They're not able to find work. In many cases, it's involuntary unemployment. Involuntary part-time. People would rather be full-time, but they're part-time instead. So the numbers are pretty clear with their close to 10,000 full-time jobs lost. I don't think that's a good sign.
Okay, let's talk about the youth unemployment situation. It was a brutal summer job market that was all over the news this year. The Carney government is saying, look, we're making changes to the temporary foreign worker program. Overall, we're reducing immigration levels. What do you think as conservatives could be done that maybe isn't being done to improve the labor market for young Canadians looking for a job?
Yeah, look, the proof will be in the pudding in terms of whether they're actually able to follow through on it, because they've talked about being a little bit more effective on this, but actually what we've seen is continuing very high numbers of permits for that. We've called for significant changes in immigration, the end of the temporary foreign worker program, as well as improvements in credential recognition. This is another important part of the picture. When people come here, if they're not having their credentials recognized, then they're much more likely to be forced to compete for entry-level jobs against young people. But more broadly, before the budget, we rolled out a Conservative Youth Jobs Plan that highlighted 4 areas: unleashing the economy, fixing immigration, fixing training, and building homes where the jobs are. And I do want to highlight there was one measure in the budget that hasn't got a lot of attention, but it actually moves in the opposite direction from where we should be going on training, because the government is now defending a policy that would remove student grants from students that are studying at private career colleges. So any program you study at any university, you're eligible for a student grant. But if you go to a career college where a lot of that critical vocational training is offered, you don't get student grants. So this will make it much more difficult for low and middle income students to pursue job relevant qualifications.
I know your party has called for just ending altogether the temporary foreign worker program. I'm just wondering, what do you do for industries that historically have used temporary foreign workers, like agriculture, for example?
Yeah, well, so the agricultural program has always been structured somewhat separately, and we've called for a carve out to protect the agriculture sector. I think, look, more broadly, we have had a persistent reality for too long where young people have not been supported in moving into the careers that are demanded by the economy, and the solution to that has just been filling the gaps in with temporary foreign workers. We can't persist on like that. The youth unemployment rate is still very high, more than double what the national unemployment rate is in general. So when you have high youth unemployment, you've got employers still saying, well, we need workers for certain areas. I think that's where you need to look at training. You need to look at what kind of supports are available for people that need to relocate for work. And that's why part of our jobs plan includes fixing training. We actually proposed offering more generous grants for students that are pursuing in-demand job skills. Liberals are moving in the opposite direction. And then also to help build homes where the jobs are. One issue for young people that might be interested in relocating to take jobs is their housing available where they'd like to relocate. And we propose some significant incentives to make it easier for employers to provide workforce housing. So I think you need a broader plan to address this issue. It's not just the immigration piece. There's lots of other pieces that we put forward. But fundamentally we can't go on with a situation where people just kind of accept that young people aren't able to take the jobs that need to be filled. We should be training and preparing the next generation to fulfill the jobs that exist in our economy.
Okay. Garnett Genuis is with us. A few more questions for you, sir, if you don't mind just hanging on for a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially interesting as you are an Alberta MP. I would like to get your thoughts on the vote that will happen on the Conservative motion on pipelines and the tanker ban and the MOU between Ottawa and Alberta. Coming up on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Here with Conservative MP from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, Garnett Genuis is with us today on a Monday. And thank you for sticking around for a few more minutes, sir. Great to hear from you again today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah.
What is your party up to with this motion this week on pipelines and the West Coast tanker ban? What is the point?
Yeah, so the point is, Mark Carney, frankly, has been a little bit slippery in a lot of cases around the issue of energy development, different messages projected in different provinces and different languages, and coming forward with an agreement that fundamentally still gives the federal government a lot of veto points. So the federal government has not committed to a pipeline. They've not committed certainly to anything like a construction schedule. They've created a process which allows them to not proceed at later points. So what we've done is put on notice and intend to bring before the House a very reasonable motion that basically takes language directly from the Memorandum of Understanding between the Government of Canada and the Government of Alberta, language that that precisely asks the House of Commons to rule on this question of supporting pipeline construction. Our position is clear. We support a pipeline, and this will be an opportunity for the government members individually, as well as the government collectively, to pronounce themselves on a motion that takes language directly from a memorandum of understanding the government has already signed on to. So I think it will be an opportunity for them to actually clarify where they stand on pipeline construction.
Okay. I would like to get your take on one other hot issue this week in our politics and what you think of the Bloc Québécois move. The Bloc insists it has the cooperation and support of the Liberals on Bill C-9 and the ending of a religious exemption for hate speech. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so the proposal that has come from the Liberals and the Bloc is a significant threat to religious freedom. It creates the conditions at the same time as this bill lowers the threshold for what is defined as hate speech. It creates the conditions in which we could see very malicious prosecution against people simply for reading scriptural texts in a context where somebody in authority thought they shouldn't have. So this is a really severe limitation, attack on freedom of speech and on freedom of religion. And the response from faith communities in this country has just been overwhelming and fast. The Muslim community, through the National Council of Canadian Muslims and the Council of Imams, has been vocal on this. The Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops released a letter last week, and I know people from other Christian traditions, from the Jewish community, from other communities have been vocal and active on this as well. One thing I think we should be clear on is that the Liberals and the Bloc absolutely did have a deal on this. This was confirmed by the Bloc, never denied by the government. It's been repeated by multiple Liberal sources. So this was and is up till now certainly the Liberal position is to support this attack on freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Now they're behaving a bit strangely, canceling meetings. So we'll see where they ultimately go on this. But Conservatives certainly are fighting back against these proposals.
Okay. Thank you for the time. Best of the season to you, sir. Yeah, bye-bye.
Same to you,
Genuis.
Sir. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Sherwood, Park Fort, Saskatchewan, Alberta. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's our Monday Newsday political panel. I'm here with Matthew Dube, Vice President of Proof Strategies, former NDP MP, Melissa Caoutte, Principal MC Consulting, founder of Pocket Lobbyist. I have been told by my producer, because we reached out and tried to request an interview with Prime Minister Carney. We didn't make that cut, but they have finalized their list of prime ministerial year-end interviews. So look for those over the Christmas season. So he's going to be asked about his major accomplishments and what remains unfinished business for his government. Melissa, when Mr. Carney is thinking about listing off his major accomplishment, what makes that list?
Well, I think, first of all, bringing the Liberals back from near political exile would probably make that list. I know that's sort of obvious, but just finding a way to gain consensus from Canadians through the election is a huge accomplishment politically, seeing as where we were, this time in 2024. Definitely announcing the MOU, I think, is very important as well. I would say, even though that his relationship or our sort of economic relationship with the United States remains uncertain, I think he's done a decent job with Trump. It's a little difficult to find success for any leader in that relationship because of how sort of how much it changes and how dynamic it is. But I would say the MOU, his relationship with Trump, I would say as well his ability, and this wouldn't be one single decision, but with folks like Hodgson and some of the other senior folks that he's brought into his office, I would say sort of bringing a little bit more private sector and sort of outside the Ottawa bubble into the fold of his government has also been an accomplishment that I think will serve him well over the years. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more of that in the future. So those would be the three.
Okay, let's go to, let's do accomplishments. What can he point to, Prime Minister Carney, as accomplishments for 2025, Matthew?
Well, look, I don't want to sound overly critical or jaded, but I don't think a whole ton on the policy front. I think so much of what's been talked about is very forward-looking and the kind of stuff that will pay dividends further down the road. I think in this calendar year, it's going to be a lot of what Melissa was mentioning. Obviously, the political outcomes that drastically changed based on where they're initially supposed to be for the Liberal Party, that is. I will say I think he's done a great job of shifting the conversation. Our earlier topic, right, about pipelines, how the Conservatives are navigating that. I think he's really managed to seize the moment in that respect and get Canadians and the political class speaking about what needs to be done to reinforce and reinvigorate Canada's economy going forward. Whether or not the government will be successful in doing that is a whole other question entirely. But I think as the year comes to an end, my takeaway is that his style doesn't necessarily mesh well with the expectations of politics, right? Politics is very, you need things now. It's instant gratification. And I think a lot of what he's doing, again, we'll see whether that pays out or not. But even when you look at the budget, right, so much of what's in there, if it's going to come to pass and really reorient Canada's economy, we won't see results right away. And that's always a hard sell in politics. I think he's genuine in that effort, but it remains to be seen how it'll be perceived, because it's hard to point to a specific win. And when you don't have something to sell to Canadians in the moment, that's a bit of a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Melissa, on unfinished business, I mean, the big thing is Trump, right? What else?
Trump is unfinished business. I think that when it comes to the actual results, as Matthew's talking about, of turning around our fiscal situation, which I would say is highly connected to our economic and productivity situation in Canada, I think that is going to take quite some time to reverse. The damage that has been done over the past 10 years to Canada's economy is not insignificant, and it's being made even more complicated by immigration that was mismanaged in many ways in many areas of the country. And so I think making sure that Carney can do a good job of shifting Canada back into firing on all cylinders, the MOU and reinvigorating hope into the energy sector is one, but also just making sure that we don't continue to mismanage the immigration consensus in Canada to a point where we have other problems that are bigger that we don't necessarily want to solve. So I would say those two are some things that he needs to definitely watch.
I don't think there's a consensus on immigration anymore, unfortunately. There was, but it's ended now, unfortunately, on the immigration. Canadians have so soured on immigration. It's a real tragedy, actually. We'll pick up on that when we come back as well. Strange times in Quebec and its impact on our federal politics when we return. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Melissa Caoutte, Principal MC Consulting Founder, Pocket Lobbyist, Matthew Dube, Vice President, Proof Strategies. Talking politics to start the week here. Well, these are strange times in Quebec, even stranger than normal. The CAQ, which is Premier Legault's party, deeply unpopular. Less than a year from now, there will be a provincial election in Quebec, and the CAQ is not expected to win. They're in third place right now. In second place are the Quebec Liberals, but they're having all kinds of their own issues, leadership problems, a scandal in the Quebec Liberal Party around vote buying, and you have the Liberals are fighting amongst themselves. There are calls for Pablo Rodriguez, the former Quebec Liberal cabinet minister, to resign, which is not going to happen. All of this has just been a dream world for the Parti Québécois, the original separatist party, the party of René Lévesque, on track to win a majority government, even though people in Quebec don't want another referendum and have really no interest in the topic, even though Stephen Guilbeault is claiming support for a pipeline to Alberta could lead to an increase in Quebec separation. I think he's full of it on that score. I'm in Quebec. I don't hear anybody, Matthew, I don't know about you, I don't hear anybody saying, well, because Mark Carney's going to wants to put a pipeline to BC, I think Quebec should separate. I literally hear nobody saying that. But how do you see the Quebec situation right now? How do you see it right now?
Yeah, I mean, I take his point. I don't agree with what he's saying. I think is the underlying thing of what he's expressing is that it'll definitely lead to a dissatisfaction maybe with the direction of the federal government, and a bit of nationalist twang in the step of certain people. But that's a far cry from voting yes in a referendum, to your point. It's a strange time. Emotions are running high. Last week, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the leader of the PQ, was out accusing groups representing, the Quebec cultural sector of bending the knee to the federal government, essentially, referring to it as a foreign government, all typical old hat, but it was all very emotionally charged. You talked about the situation with the Quebec Liberals, with Pablo Rodriguez. Also a lot of emotions in there, a lot of infighting within that caucus. So definitely interesting times for sure, but I think ultimately what it reflects is, I think, a volatility in the province. There's a lot of frustration. You mentioned Premier Legault. It's been a while, right? And I think people are ready to look to something different. But as we know, these are challenging times for incumbents everywhere, just with the cost of living and all those things that know no borders and are just in Quebec as everywhere else.
Yeah, I don't think the PQ being on track to win a majority government there has really anything to do with the separation issue or sovereignty. I think it's about issues that are existing in all the provinces. Why is my healthcare system falling apart? What's going on with public education and public infrastructure and housing afforded? All of these issues. I think it's a desire for change and a desire for better government. That's how I see it. How do you see the Quebec situation right now, Melissa?
Well, I think in many ways there are a lot of parallels to what goes on in Quebec to what goes on in Alberta. Of course, the issues are different, but the sort of sentiment of Canada working or not working for each of those provinces has sort of similar lines. I agree with what you've said and what Matthew said, that this is probably not being driven by separatism itself, because, again, when I look at the political priorities of voters, I kind of look at it through a Maslow's hierarchy. And when I look at things like nationalism and separatism and culture, those tend to be a little bit higher up the pyramid than basic needs like housing and security and all of those things, all of which we know are not in tip-top shape in many areas across Canada, Quebec included. So I think it's a response to the incumbency as well. But I think it's also, we're going through a little bit of a shift in the world and in Canada. And I think that what's up is down and what's down is up. For example, Guilbeault coming out and saying that the MOU is going to impact things in Quebec. He may be living, 5 years in the past. In the here and now, people care about economics, feeding their families, those table issues.
Yeah. All right, great to get caught up today. Thank you so much to the both of you. Stay warm. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Yeah, Matthew Dube, Vice President of Proof Strategies. Melissa Caoutte, Pocket Lobbyist. This is News Radio. Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. The topic for today, your first home. Your first home. We want to know everything about it. We want to know everything about your first home. Everything you're willing to share. The first home you bought, the first home the bank gave you the mortgage for. Tell us about it. Tell us about it, okay? What kind of home was it? How much was it? Why that home? Okay? What was it about that home? What was it about that place? How old were you when you bought your first home? How old were you? What were you doing at the time for work? When you think about that home now, if it's still around, what do you figure it's worth these days? And importantly, what do you think could be done? Or what would need to happen to have younger Canadians buy a first home that's like the kind of first home you bought? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. The reason we want to talk about this today, this is really, it is one of the great divides in this country right now. It's dividing Canadians, primarily by generation, is this ability to say, I'm a homeowner. You have older Canadians, certainly over the age of 50, certainly over the age of 60, who managed to not only buy a home, but pay the home off. Don't even have a mortgage. It's more than a third of Canadian homeowners. They don't even have a mortgage. They own their homes free and clear. It's like 34%. Their homes are paid off. They're living mortgage free. And let's face it, for most of the last few decades, it's a home that has only increased in value. At the same time, you have younger generations, say people under the age of 35, and we have heard this time and time and time again. It's so prevalent in our politics as well, and certainly all the public opinion research bears this out. So many want what their parents and grandparents had. So many people want to buy a home, people of those generations. They want to have a place to call their own, but they don't feel as though it will ever happen. It's like an unattainable dream. They just will never be able to afford it. And this comes up all the time. Generations arguing with one another. Sometimes on social media, you see this. Oh, older generations had it easier. Homes were so much more affordable back then. Earnings kept pace with the price of homes, especially single-family homes. And that's just not the case anymore, and the older generations had it better than we do. Millennials, Gen Z, now homes are too expensive. And young people are finding it harder and harder and harder to be able to buy that first home. And some young people will say it's not fair. It's not fair. And they will say to older people, you had it so much easier than we have it right now. And maybe you've heard this, older people will fire back and say, you know what, it was a lot harder than you think it was. And we worked hard. And maybe the homes were more affordable, but have you ever looked at mortgage rates in the mid 70s to early 80s? Imagine a mortgage rate of 17%, 18%, 19%. A mortgage rate, 19%, because that wasn't out of the ordinary for a period of time in this country, for many, many years in this country. And you hear it from people of a certain age, people older than me. Buying that home did take a lot of work. It did take a lot of sacrifice. It did take managing certain expectations about the sort of place you were going to call home and the kind of place you really could afford. And some will say Canadians, the younger generations, millennial, Gen Z, they're not willing to make the same sort of sacrifices, or they have unrealistic expectations. This is what we're trying to explore today. Well, this is what we want to do today. We want to get a better idea of what that first home of yours was like and how you managed to be able to afford it and how that happened and what was going on in your life at the time and what kind of sacrifices you did make in order to get into that first home And why did you pick that home? And then we'll explore what can be done, what's going to need to happen so that everyone can buy a home. Shouldn't that be the ultimate goal? Everyone being able to buy a home so that members of younger generations can also buy that first home of their own? Because being able to do that, to stop renting, to get a place to call your own, is still for so many Canadians a big moment in life. And for so many younger Canadians, it's a big moment in life that they don't think they're ever going to experience, no matter what they do. So first homes, that's what we want to talk about today. Tell us about yours. Tell us about your first home. What kind of house? How much? Why that house? How'd you end up in that first house? What was going on in life at the time? What were you doing for work? Was it just yourself? Did you move in with a spouse? Is that house still around? And what do you think could be done? What's going to happen in this country so a young Canadian worker could be able to buy the kind of first house that you were able to buy when you were out there all those decades ago, looking for that first home of yours? First homes. On Talkback today, 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. And we'll talk about first homes. Tell us the story of your first home. I'm Rob Snow. It's Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
First homes, our topic of the day. First homes. We want to know all about your first home, and then we want to know, what do you think can be done? What's going to happen in this country so the young Canadian worker of today can be able to afford the same kind of home that was your first home? Let's jump right into it here. Chris is in Calgary. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Rob. How you doing, buddy?
I'm very good, Chris. Thank you for calling. Tell me about your first home.
Yeah, okay. So I'll try to keep it as short as possible. So I had started investing in RSPs when I was 18 because my dad was preaching at me all the time, which worked out really good because by the time I was 19, my parents were separated. I lived with my mom. So by the time I was 19, it was time for me to move out. So I had used the little bit of money that I invested in RSPs only for a year to make my down payment, first-time homebuyers plan. So
okay.
That's how I got into my first place. So I bought my first place at 19 years old. It was a townhouse. It was in the northeast of Calgary. It was $82,000. I put 5% down. I think it worked out to about $4,300. And
wow.
And I mean, I just barely made it in. And I went through TD Bank, and the lady at the bank, her name was Rhonda, and she wrote a letter to CMHC saying how responsible I was and blah, blah, blah. And I managed to get approved by myself at $12.81 an hour.
You were making $12.81 an hour at the time?
That's right. I was on night shift. I was a second-year apprentice welder.
Apprentice welder at the time. Okay. So what year would this have been, Chris?
I graduated in 97, so I would have bought the place either 98 or 99, right in there.
Around 98, 99. Okay. All right. Okay. 98, 99. Yeah. So, 25, 26, 20, 27 years ago, say. Okay.
Yes,
around there. Right? Is that home still around today? That townhouse that you bought all those years ago?
It is.
Yeah. You're not living there anymore, are you?
No. I've owned a couple homes since then and moved up, and I had all sorts of kids and got married and that kind of thing. The house is still there. I bought it for $82,000. I lived there for I think maybe 4 years. I sold it for $96,000, and it was in 2006, 2007. The economy was going pretty good before the economy dropped off. So I'd say about 2006, that same place was for sale for just under $300,000.
Wow! Holy cow!
You're right.
Even that is, that's, what, 8 or 9 years ago. No, I guess longer than that now. What do you think that house is worth now? That first townhouse that you bought for $82,000. If you drove by it today, what do you figure it's worth in Calgary?
Just a smidge over $300,000 is what they're listed for in that area. I actually just looked not too long ago.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
Chris.
they're about $350,000. Okay. Yeah.
So, to circle back here, what is going to happen in this country? So, 19 maybe a bit young. I don't know how many 19-year-olds. I certainly wasn't buying homes at 19. You were very disciplined, obviously, ahead of your time, wise beyond your years. But say somebody who's 25. What has to happen in this country so that 25-year-old would be able to buy the equivalent of whatever an $82,000 townhouse in Calgary is these days?
Well, Rob, I think it can be done. I mean, it's a little bit harder now, of course, than what it was before. But I think with some discipline and some hard work and just keep your eye on the ball, I think you can do it. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it. You can, gifts from grandparents and a little. And I mean, you need a little bit of help now, and it can be done. I think people just get discouraged because of everything that we hear all the time. I have a daughter who has just recently purchased her first place, her and her husband, and 4 years ago, they thought they could never do it. So fast forward 4 years, they have 2 kids now. I have 2 grandchildren, and they've managed to scrimp and save enough to get into their own place. And I didn't give them any money. I didn't loan them any. They saved it on their own. So it can be done, Rob. It's daunting. It's going to take a little bit of work, but I think it can be done.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris. Got us off to a good start. To Kitchener now. Sonia's in Kitchener. Hi, Sonia.
Hello.
Hi, Sonia. Tell me about your first home.
We bought our first home in 1989. Interest rates were double digit. We were living in Toronto at the time. We were renting an apartment. I had a 4-year-old at the time, and we had to go look elsewhere than Toronto because there was no way we were going to afford there. So we ended up
in 1989.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only way that we got our house was my in-laws had paid off their house, and they basically bought the house. We had to do some creative stuff, right? So we had to, they bought the house, we were the renters, and we did that for 1 year. And our rent was basically paying the mortgage and taxes. And then after a year, they flipped ownership for $1 to us.
Wow.
And we became responsible for that mortgage.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much was the house at the time in 1989, if you don't mind, Sonia? How much was the house in 1989? How much was it?
It's a semi-detached, and we got it for $137,000, which was a deal coming from Toronto. Yeah. But out here, it was peak. It was expensive.
It was peak. Okay.
Our house was only 7 years old, and the person we bought it from paid $40,000 for it.
Wow. So holy cow. Okay. They did all right then. Right. What do you think that house in Kitchener's worth now?
When people now are going, oh, my kids will never afford a house. They'll never be able to afford to live on their own. It's like, well, are you willing to give up some of your equity that you've been making in your house? Because we have got some equity now, right? Because of the bump that happened.
Yeah.
And I have 3 children, 3 grown children. They've all bought homes.
Good for them. Okay. Look, just that first home in 1989, that was $137,000. What is that house worth now?
I think we can get about $600 now.
600. Wow. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, 26 years later. Very good. Thank you for your call. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
on First Homes. Chad in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Chad. You're up next. Tell me about your first home, Chad.
Good morning or good afternoon to you, probably.
Yeah, hi there, Chad.
Yeah,
very good.
I bought my first, well, my wife and I, as we then were, bought our first home in Northeast Calgary. It was a semi-detached, 1994, late 1994. We paid $76,500 for it. I was a student still. I was doing my undergraduate degree. She was a kind of an accounting tech. So, you know, we didn't have a ton of income. I don't think we had any savings to put toward it either. We had just gotten married, and the 5% down on that 76.5 came as a form of like wedding gifts from both sets of parents, I think. So, you know, a couple of thousand from each, if I remember right. And it was the parents who pushed us encouraged us to do it because, hey, why throw money down the drain renting when you can buy something essentially for the same amount of money, which was true at the time. Since I knew you were going to ask, I looked up the current city assessment for that house. So the assessed market value of that house right now is $411,500, so $411,500.
Okay.
To put a little bit more context on that, I then went to the Bank of Canada's inflation calculator to say, hey, what would that 76.5 in 1994 be worth today? And today it would be $148,000. So the gap is between $148,000 and $411,000.
Holy cow. Very well done.
I hear you.
What an interesting calculation.
So you know, that 76.5 should be 150,000 today, and instead it's 411. I don't know how a young person's going to get into a house unless they're inheriting, you know, some generational wealth or something. I have a daughter. She's 23. She's still in university. By luck, and you can call it good luck or bad luck because it was a tragedy, but I lost my only brother a few years ago, and he left some money. So I was able to give my daughter $100,000 that I assume at some point she's going to use to finish up her education, and then she might use some of that to help with buying a house. I don't know. But, you know, absent some help, I think the people who say, oh, you know, it's still possible, you just have to buckle down, I said, well, sure. But I think we also have to acknowledge, there is a big gap. Housing got more expensive at a rate that is, you know, housing got more expensive at a faster rate than everything else in the economy did. And bear in mind that inflation calculator is including housing. So if you stripped housing out of that inflation calculation, that 150 number would be even smaller if you were just using wages and food and whatever else. So,
sure thing.
It's a problem. Now, policy, you know, you're asking callers, well, okay, what should we change? I don't know, because I'm now a selfish Gen Xer who's, say, 10 or 15 years away from retirement. I don't want the equity in my house to disappear, especially since my wife left me and I had to give her half of it. It's like so this is a really tough problem politically.
Yeah, sure is. Thank you. Very illuminating. Be right back. This is News Radio. Yeah, we want to know all about your first home. I mean, it sounds like a real estate dreamland. Some of the callers so far, 19 years old, first home, $82,000 in 1998, 1999. 1989, $137,000 in Kitchener. 1994, $76,500 for single attached. In 1994, a home that's worth more than $400,000 now. To go back in time to have that DeLorean. Let's go to Steve up next. Steve's in Calgary. Hi, Steve.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. Yeah, very good, Steve. I want to know about your first home, Steve.
So similar to your previous many callers, I was fortunate. Great parents suggested to save some money, so I did. Bought my first home in 1999 for $132,000 approximately. It was a 4-level split, 900 square feet, 2 levels developed, 2 levels undeveloped. I was able to put down 25%, a little bit of help from my parents, but not a lot. So I got to not pay the insurance for the mortgage. And I did it basically I never had a new car. I bought at least a 7-year-old car. I didn't have to make car payments, so I was really smart about it. The house I really did want, believe it or not, was $143,000, and I could not afford it. So that's why I stuck for that $132,000 home. No ensuite, nothing like that.
Right. What were you doing at the time, Steve, for work and whatnot?
So I was making about $30,000 a year, so not a lot of money. I was a manager at a movie theater, so I wasn't making a lot of money.
Okay.
But I was making enough to afford it. My mortgage payments were pretty small. My interest rate was 5.95 back then, and it was great because since then I've moved on. I sold it in 2014 for $365,000, which absolutely blew my mind because I never thought that house would be worth that amount. I bought it just when it was at the peak, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. But unfortunately, I had to buy another house at the time period, which was then going to cost me $560,000.
Wow. Okay. Let me ask you, Steve, to circle back. That young person today who wants that, you're making your first house sound kind of like a no-frills kind of starter home, $132,000. There was another home you liked a lot more, but it was $10,000 more. You didn't go for it. You settled on this one. What's going to have to happen in this country so that young Canadian worker today could buy the same kind of house that you were able to buy in 1999?
I think people need to realize that they can't have the house that they want for their first house. I had lino floors and carpet, no hardwood. I didn't have an ensuite. So I really settled. The house I wanted was a 2-story, had an ensuite, the whole bit. But I knew that if I went an extra $9,000, I just couldn't afford the mortgage payment. So I think people need to realize they can do it. I mean, I was making $30,000 a year. The house was $133,000, right? So you make $100,000 or $60,000 or $70,000. A lot of kids out of university are making that kind of money. I think people can afford it. They just have to understand that it may come without the ensuite, the granite countertops. My 2 levels were undeveloped. I only had 2 levels developed, but over time I developed more of my house.
Okay. So managing expectations, more realistic expectations, I think would be the advice from Steve. Thank you, Steve, for your call. Who do we have up next on the line? How about Joe? Hi, Joe. Hi, Joe. I hear you, Joe. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I'm at work here waiting for you.
Okay, Joe. Well, thanks for waiting. Your first home.
Yes, my first home was a townhome. And
townhome?
It was in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah, and I bought it for $180,000. It was 2006.
2006.
And that was before everything went up.
Yeah.
So it was being built in 2006. By the time we moved in, our mortgage person told us it jumped to $330,000. That's before everything went crazy.
Yes.
In 2007.
Right.
So when we lived there for 7 years, and then we moved into a house. People can afford it. They just have to talk to someone that will help them get through all the paperwork and show them that not to go crazy on buying furniture or a car at that time, because then you'll lose it.
Okay.
When we sold our house, or our townhome, there was a person that was buying our house, but they went to buy furniture. So they put more money on their credit, and they lost it. So we lost out on that, on the sale of the house.
I see.
But the next person that bought it didn't do that. You have to be very frugal, I guess, to what need and what don't you need, that kind of thing.
Right. And do you think that the young Canadian worker today doesn't think that way, or has unrealistic expectations, or wants too much, or their tastes are too extravagant? What do you think?
I don't think so. I think it has everything to do with what they want in their house. Like the gentleman before you said, the flooring. Do you really need the granite tops? Do you really need the fridge that has the ice maker in it? You can buy that later. Buy the stuff that is more important to the house. So the outside foundation has to be protected. The plumbing, make sure that it drains properly. Like, let's put money into the basement,
the bones
and,
of the
the
house.
Walls. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of putting in luxury carpet in, put the 10 grand into the foundation of the house. So this way, when you decide to stick around for 30 years into a new home, you can have it. Everything.
Right. Are you still? You're not living in that townhouse anymore, Joe? Is that right?
No.
You sold it? Yeah.
Yeah, we sold it because I didn't want to pay condo fees, and that's the biggest problems. We moved in for $107 a month for condo fees. Then it jumped up to $300.
Oh, wow.
So you have to be very cautious of that, right?
Yeah. Let me ask you. What do you think that townhouse is worth now?
Well, I'm thinking it's probably around 400. And it
around
does have a
400,
two small car garage, so 20 by 20.
Right. Okay. 20 years later.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you. Bye-bye. First homes. And what's it going to take so that young Canadian worker today could buy that same kind of first house that you were able to buy way back when? 1-833-668-2577 on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to the Halifax area. Take a call from Halifax today. Mike is on the line. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Mike. Thanks for calling today. Tell me about your first home.
So my first home was about 15 minutes outside of Halifax. It was a brand new home, 2.5 acres of land, well, septic, the whole turnkey package on a corner lot for $106,000 for a bungalow, 3-bedroom bungalow.
$106,000? Wow. Holy
106,
cow.
yeah, in 1998. And just to put it into perspective, in the peak in 2020 when everything, I had sold it like 4 years later, and I made like $8,000 on it. In 2020, the person that bought it from me still owns it, but houses around the area, like neighbors and stuff that were in the area, they were selling for anywhere from $650 to $850 for basically the same home, same size lot. So
wow.
Kind of wish I had kept it, to tell you the truth.
Right. So you figure that home that you bought in 1998 for $106,000, about 15 minutes outside of Halifax, if it was on the market today, $650 to $850, not out of the question.
That was in the
unbelievable.
That was in the peak in 2020 during COVID. I think they went down a bit, but I mean it would still go for between 5 and 6 now for sure.
Sure. Okay. So if that's the case, I keep coming back to this. What has to happen in this country so that, that 30-year-old who's working their butt off today is going to be able to buy the same kind of home you were able to buy in 1998?
I don't think it's going to be possible unless they have, they're very well established, make very good money, 100,000 plus, maybe with a spouse that makes the same, or if they have a family member that gives them a huge down payment, or I just don't think it's possible because I look at what I made back then. I was probably around 35, 40,000 a year. My spouse at the time, she made a bit. She was a customs officer. She made a bit more than me. And, we didn't live high on the hog, but we obviously were able to buy a house and we each had a car. But the wages, people nowadays aren't making that much more. And the houses have gone 4 or 5 times the price of what they were.
Right. So make good money and
very unlikely.
Get richer parents. Make good money, get richer parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate to say that, but I think that's the only option some people have is to hopefully have parents that can help them out, or a rich uncle pass away and leave them a nice boat or something. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, good to hear from you. To Bridgewater, also in Nova Scotia. Rory's in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Hi, Rory.
Hi.
Hi, Rory. Good to hear from you, Rory. Tell me about that first home of yours.
What was that?
Just want to know about that first house of yours, Rory.
Okay, well, I bought my first house when I lived in British Columbia. I bought it in 1992 for $151,000, but it was a 1955, like under 1,000 square foot rancher, 1 story, 1 bathroom, no dishwasher, and it was a fixer-upper. It had old shag carpet, linoleum flooring in it, gravel driveway with small one-car garage, and the increased values isn't a new thing, because when I bought the house, I looked at the previous sale. The person I bought it from bought it in 1979 for $43,000. So it went up 3.5 times in 15 years. So it's not like it's a new phenomenon.
Right. What part of British Columbia was it in, if you don't mind me asking, Rory?
Surrey.
In Surrey. Okay.
Yeah. I had been renting in Richmond. I was 35 years old at that time. I was a late bloomer, but I moved out when I was 20. So I rented for quite a few years, and I couldn't afford, I grew up in North Delta. I couldn't afford to buy there. I couldn't afford to buy in New Westminster or Richmond. So I had to go to Surrey and drive an hour to work. And then I sold it in 2020, just before COVID. And we sold it for over $750,000, and that house is still there. I checked the BC assessment; it's assessed at almost $1.1 million now. And when we sold it, we figured it was going to get torn down right away, because in that area, a lot of the houses were getting knocked down. They're putting up big 6,000 square foot mansions on those properties.
Yeah. And you bought it for how much in '92?
$151.
$151. And it's assessed at $1.1 million now.
Yep.
My gosh almighty. So what would you tell that young person who would love to buy Rory's BC starter home in Surrey for $150,000, but it's going for $1.1 million? What do you tell that young person?
Well, I mean, it'd be tough, but I mean, it wasn't easy then. I mean, I made good money. I was a mechanic at a new car dealership. And so I was making decent money. And I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't party. I was driving a 15-year-old Ford Fairmont, so I was a pretty cheap guy. And I still had a second job delivering pizza once I got the house to help pay for the mortgage. And to get the down payment, I cashed in my RRSPs, and to get the 10% down, I had to borrow a bit of money from my parents.
Okay. But again, emerging themes, frugality, help from parents, not driving new cars, lowered expectations, tempered expectations. More of your calls on First Homes when we come back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about First Homes. Tell us all about your first home. What kind of house was it? Why that house? What were you doing at the time? How much was it? And it's going to have to happen in this country so a young Canadian worker today could be able to buy a similar kind of house. 1-833-668-2577. Ken is in Cochrane. Hi, Ken. Thanks for waiting, Ken. I know a bit of a wait today. Go ahead. Hi, Ken. Are you with me, Ken? Okay, let's try Rick in Kitchener. Hi, Rick. Well, boy, we're on a real losing streak here. Why don't we try Gordon in Calgary? Let's try Gordon.
Hello.
Third time's a charm. Hi, Gordon. Yeah, good to hear from you, Gordon.
Yes, you got a great topic today. It's great.
Well, thank you so much. How was your how much was your first home? What kind of home was it, Gordon? When did you buy it? All that stuff.
Hello?
All right, I'm not sure what's going on with our phone lines. Curtis, if you could sort that out, we'll just stop here for our first hour because we've tried 3 phone lines and none of them seem to be working right now. I apologize for that. It's probably on our end and not our caller's fault. We'll have a few minutes during our latest breaking newscast to sort all of that out, and then we'll be back with hour number 2 of Talkback. It's been a very busy Talkback on this particular topic of first homes. Just tell us all about it. What was going on in your life when you bought it? How old were you? How much was it? What's it worth these days? And what about that young Canadian worker today who doubts they're ever going to buy a home? What has to happen in this country so they can buy that first home that you were able to buy? 1-833-668-2577. Hour number 2 of Talkback is just ahead after the latest breaking news on News Radio. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback for a Monday, but we're talking about first homes. Tell us about that first home of yours, the year you bought it, how much it was, what kind of house it was, why you went with that house as opposed to another house. What were you doing in life at the time? If it's still around, what do you think it's worth these days? And all things being equal, what do you think could be done? What is going to happen in Canada so that a young Canadian worker today could be able to buy a similar house? You know, the kind of house you were able to buy when you were a first-time home buyer. Let's go back to Kitchener. Rick is in Kitchener today. Hi, Rick.
Hi, how are you today, my friend?
Yeah, very good, Rick. Thank you so much for your call. Tell us about that first home of yours. Well, thank you so much.
Your show, my friend.
I love you. I love you for saying that.
Okay, we've been living in this house for 45 years. It's an old farmhouse that was built in 1873. When we moved out here in 76, it was like a pig pen. I had to clear off the land. I live on 4 acres. I have a hobby farm. I paid $52,000 for it. And if somebody drove up my laneway today and offered me $1 million, I wouldn't sell it.
Wow. Holy cool. Wow.
What do you think of that?
Is that just because you're attached to it, Rick? Is that just because you're attached to it, or?
The property's worth that around here. I live in Mennonite country.
Okay.
And the house was just a pig pen. I built a barn on it. I built a driving shed. I had to clear the land off. It was an old orchard. I fenced it. I've raised every possible animal you can think of. All I've got left now is 2 donkeys.
Okay. All right. Sounds like they might come in handy.
Old.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay. $52,000 in 1976. And just give me a sense, Rick, like what was it like to, people are going to hear that now, $52,000. My gosh, Rick's so lucky he bought a house for $52,000. What was it like when you looked at that sum in 1976 and said, I'm buying a house for $52,000? Like it must have seemed like all the money in the world.
I was shocked that it was that high because my sisters and brothers always bought their house at $17,000 and $32,000, and then I had to pay $52,000. I thought, wow, but we just jumped into it. And as I said, when we moved here, the house was a pig pen. And when we bought our appliances, all the appliances, washer, dryer, dishwasher, anything we had was all secondhand. All secondhand, never brand new.
Secondhand.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And we did a lot of the work ourselves with friends, like we roofed our house with friends. We knew some guy that had a little bit of experience in shingling, and somebody who did windows, carpentry, and then we all worked together and did their houses and our houses. We all worked as a team, but the kids don't do that anymore.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting point. Okay, so you relied a lot on friends and neighbors to do a lot of the upkeep.
Yeah, like we had one guy that knew how to shingle, so we got 5 or 6 guys ready. We bought the shingles ourselves and put them on the roof, and then the guy kind of coached us, and we did the roofs. And then when my next buddy needed one, we went to his house. And if you needed a garage built, like I built a garage out the back, I tore it down in the city, hauled it out on hay wagons, and rebuilt it with my friends. That somebody knew a little bit more about it than I did. And I had a wife that could really, really fix up the house the way she had good talent with the house, painting it, fixing walls and stuff like that. And it worked out well. We worked as a team, but the kids don't work as a team anymore. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. Call. Yeah, I hear you, Rick. Yeah. Thank you for your call. Going to move along. And Crossfield, Alberta is up next. Is it Tyrell?
It is. How are you, Rob?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for your call, Tyrell. Yeah, good to hear from you. Tell me about your first home.
I just want to touch base on this a little bit. I think, what the young couple or young family, or if you're a single guy, you got to kind of be a little bit innovative in how you go about getting that first house. So in 2006, I had some money saved up that I thought, man, I'd really love to get a new house. And this was in Airdrie, and it was $190,000. My brother is 3 years younger than me. He didn't have the down payment, but he could help me make the payment month to month on the house. So the two of us bought it together and, made it affordable. I think if you have a friend or a family member that you can do that with, it really helps. Because even in 2006, I had just got on with the fire department. My brother had got on with the police department. $190,000 was still quite a daunting number. I think we were making around $50,000 each per year at that time. Okay. And, by 2009, the market had really almost doubled, and we were able to split off at that point. We each walked away with about $100,000 and some $1,000, and we were able to buy our own places. But I think that's what people have to look at. You don't always have to buy it by yourself per se. If you have a family member, a friend that you don't mind going in on the house with, it worked out really well for us. That was how we got over the hump, because neither one of us could afford a house on our own.
Interesting. What kind of house was it?
So it was a bi-level. So it was undeveloped in the basement. So that was one thing that my brother and I did, is we developed that basement so that you could have two spaces. So I had the basement space, he had the upstairs space, and we shared the kitchen. Obviously I get you got to have a good relationship with whoever you're living with, but a bi-level was great because you had separation, and, other than sharing the kitchen, you kind of had your own space. So it was really great, for us.
Yeah, good for you. What do you figure it's worth now, if it's still around that place?
Yeah, when we sold it in 2008, it was at the height of the market, and I think we sold it for $420. I think it has crept back up into that price range. That is a single family home. I think too that when people are out looking, what we did at the time, and I don't know how much this happens anymore, but builders were building spec homes. And a spec home was like your entry level home. There was nothing fancy about it, but it made it affordable. As soon as you go into that builder and say, I want this, that, and the other thing, you are going to be upcharged. So that's what I would suggest to people is, try and do it with someone if you can. Try and get a spec home or something that's entry level. And,
right on.
We got lucky because the market, it went really well for us, but I think it can happen again. I think it can happen for the next generation. No doubt.
There you go. Yeah. Find a nice brother and be nice to them.
That's right.
Okay. First home in Airdrie, $190,000. Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll be right back. More of your calls on First Homes today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about first homes today. Your experience buying your first home, what was going on in life, how much was it? And what advice would you give to that young person hoping to buy the same kind of home that you were able to buy all those many years ago? I just noticed as we make our way through the program today, like none of our callers paid more than $200,000 for their first home. Like the highest one was $2,690,000. 1992 in Surrey, $150,000 a house that is now assessed in Surrey for $1.1 million. 1998, $106,000. 2006, $180,000. 2006. 1999, $132,000 in Calgary. 1994 in Calgary, $76,500. Assessed at $411,000. 1989, $137,000. Would easily sell for $600,000 now in Kitchener. And 19 years old, making $12.81 an hour, bought a house in 1998 for $82,000. Isn't that something, the way the market has changed so much? Ernie is in Kitchener up next. Hi, Ernie. Hi, Ernie. Are you there? Not there. Okay, let's try Gordon again in Calgary then. Hi, Gordon.
How are you?
Yeah, very good, Gordon. Thank you.
Oh, great. Doing great. Good topic.
That's good.
Today.
Thank you.
We're living in our house for the last 53 years, and we bought the house. I was 23 years old when we bought our house, and it was $19,000.
$19,000. Wow.
Yes, it was a.
What
tough
year was
goal.
that?
We had that was 1972.
1972.
And we're still living in it.
And you're still living in it. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of house?
It's a bungalow. It's a 3-bedroom. It's been remodeled previously before we bought it. And we had to take out a second mortgage. Thank goodness to our realtor. She was a very kind lady and loaned us the $2,000 second mortgage payment. Not payment, but second mortgage. Because the bank at that time, I was making only $410 a month before taxes. And my wife was making $350 a month as well. And they took all of my salary and only 1/3 of her salary, and we still did not qualify. We were we tried to qualify for a newer area, and the bank would not loan us the money. So anyways, we ended up in inner city in Calgary, a 900 square foot home. And we're still here. So
you're still there. Okay.
You're still there.
Yeah, for $19,000 in 1972. No.
Yeah, we had two kids in the house.
Yeah.
And we thought we would move, and then we thought, you know what? Why? The house is big enough for the two of us, and we never looked back. And like I said, it's just been tough days for these young people.
Oh, sure is. Yeah. Let me ask you, Gordon, you've been there for so long now, since 1972, almost as long as I've been alive. But let's say you did put that for sale sign in the front yard. How much do you figure you'd get for it?
Well, anywhere from, I'm going to say around, just a rough guess, it's around $800,000 because we're inner city in Calgary.
Right. $800,000. Isn't that something?
Yep. It's unbelievable. Yeah. I don't know what to say about these young people trying to get into it. I know my daughter's in the same way. She can't afford a house, and she's got a good paying job, but she can't afford a house. Can't even, and it's a shame to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure is. It sure is.
So,
and even you had a little help along the way by the sounds of it. You had a friendly banker.
Did. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Well, it was our real estate. I should say the realtor at the time.
Yeah.
She was that type of lady that tried to help young people get a fresh start. And
right. Well,
if it wasn't for that down,
good for her.
If it wasn't for her second mortgage, or her money, the $2,000, we wouldn't have got a house. We would have been probably renting still.
Yeah.
But one good thing
I'm just curious, Gordon. Like 1972, $19,000. Like, what was the mortgage payment on a $19,000 house? Do you happen to remember that?
Oh, I know we were paying 9%.
9%. Okay, not bad, really.
I'm trying to remember what it was.
72.
What payment? PIT, $168. PIT.
$168. Isn't that
at 9%.
$168 at 9%. Wow.
But it was a tough goal,
$168. My gosh, some people's cell phone bills are more than $168 these days, Gordon. All right. Thank you.
It is.
Yeah. Isn't that something? All right. Well, that's a trip down memory lane. Thank you for your call. $168 a month mortgage. What a dream. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Clifford, Ontario. Dawn is up next on First Homes. Hi, Dawn.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Dawn. Tell me about that first home of yours.
In 1967, we bought a brand new 4-bedroom house, 2-story house, with a down payment of $800 in a new subdivision. Now, how did we do that? Ontario government had something called the Ontario Home Ownership Made Easy Plan for first-time buyers. They had accumulated, I don't know how many acres in Brampton and in Bramalea, which is now part of Brampton. But anyway, the thing was that you bought the house, which was $18,000, and you had a mortgage for the house, but you did not own the land. But you rented the land from the government of Ontario for $84 a month for 50 years. They couldn't increase the rent for 50 years. It was fixed at $84 a month. So who would buy?
$84 a month.
Now, you had an opportunity. After 2 years, they realized that it wasn't a good deal for the government, so they said that if people wanted to buy the land, they could buy it. I think it was going to be $18,000 for the land. Anyway, after 5 years, I sold the house for $55,000. I have no idea what it is worth today, but I wouldn't be surprised if people are still renting the land.
For $84 a month?
Yep.
Yeah, isn't that so? Well, and you said it was for 50 years, though, right? So the 50 years would be over now, I guess. But yeah.
That's right. That's right. Now, they built about 200 houses, and we used to kid about the house that we wondered what it would be like when the crazy glue dried. But the house was a basic 2-story house, brick and aluminum siding. And I haven't been by there for some time now, but I would imagine they probably sell for about $600,000 or $700,000 today.
Right. Okay. I mean, fairly innovative, though, when you think about it, right? $800 down payment. We'll own the land. You won't own the land. We'll lease you the land for $84 a month for 50 years. The rent on the land will never go up. And here's an $18,000 house.
That's right.
I mean, if only we had that kind of thing today, what would you tell that young person today who's trying to buy,
most of these young people can afford rent or can afford the monthly payments, but they can't find that down payment. And the government is spending billions of dollars with all these programs. If they could do something like that to get these people in, they could carry the mortgage.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned programs. I mean, the city of Ottawa just today, this is big news where I am, near the city of Ottawa. The federal government is giving the city of Ottawa $400 million for 3,000 housing units, which is $133,000 per unit. And most of that is because the city has agreed to lower its development charges. So this will help fill the city coffers. But, $400 million for 3,000 units. I mean, it's barely a drop in the bucket from the government that says it's going to build 500,000 housing units a year. Well, I mean, if 3,000 costs $400 million, what's 500,000 going to cost? My goodness gracious.
I don't know
Thank you.
How this would translate.
That's very interesting, though, Gordon. Very interesting. Especially the $84 a month payment for the land for 50 years. Be right back with more of your first home stories. This is News Radio. you about first homes today on Talkback. Want to know all about your first home? All about it. The year you bought it, how much it was, what kind of house it was, why you picked that house, what you were doing for work at the time. If the house is still around, what do you think it's worth these days? And then we want to circle back to the young Canadian worker today who really wants to buy a first home. Maybe the same kind of home that you were able to buy all those years ago. What's going to have to happen in this country? Or what do you think could be done to get that worker, to get that young Canadian adult, say under the age of 35, into a home that they can call their own? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Hayden in Calgary up next. Hi, Hayden.
Hey, Rob. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, Hayden. Thanks for calling.
Hey, so I bought my first home in 2015 when I was 25 years old.
2015? 25,
yeah,
wow.
So when I was 25, I bought it for $350,000 in Northwest Calgary.
Oh, okay.
It was a townhome.
And how did you manage to do that at the ripe old age of 25, Hayden?
So I got into the trade as an electrician at 20 years old. I became a journeyman electrician at 25. My company offered a $1 an hour RSP matching program, so I took advantage of that throughout my apprenticeship and into my journeyman years. And then I used the first-time home buyers program to purchase my first home. So I used about $12,000 out of that. And between the ages of 20 and 25, I was renting a room, so my expenses were pretty low. And I put around $300 away paycheck, so that helped.
Right. So you lived frugally?
Yeah.
Saved faithfully, I would say, right? Yeah?
Yep. And today, so we sold it. So I sold it at the last housing spike there. We got a pretty good offer for it, but today I'd probably say it's worth around $425.
Around $425. And what kind of house was it?
It was a townhome.
Townhome, okay.
We bought it at the end of the oil boom spike in 2014, moved in 2015, and it dropped hard right after that, right after we moved in. So I was kind of like stuck there for 10 years, but it climbed back. We made our money on that, and we lucked out. So it was hard to get into, all that saving, but it was definitely worth it in the end. So
yeah. So what do you think needs to happen for that to happen to another 25-year-old these days? 10 years after you did it.
You don't need car payments. Go for a career that pays, try not to rack up all that school debts. Go for what's in demand. Get a couple buddies like the guy from Crossfield said and live with them for a bit. And just try to be frugal, And I mean, that's how I did it, but get a family member, do something. But it's definitely tougher these days. I mean, the people who bought it off us, I mean, I couldn't imagine paying $475,000 for a townhome now with a $350 condo fee, right? I mean, at that price, you may as well just look at a single family home.
Okay. Right. Okay. Hayden, thank you for your call. Live frugally. Don't buy a new car. Popular sentiment expressed by many callers today on driving that old car until it dies in the driveway or hopefully not on the side of the road. But that's what a lot of people did. Pat in Ottawa. Hi, Pat.
Hi. How about buying your first home when you're 23?
23. Wow. Okay.
In 1983, in 1982, I think, as I recall. I wasn't planning on buying a house right away, but I opened the Saturday newspaper back when we had newspapers, and there were ads from the from the builders, but highlighting the fact that the federal and provincial governments were going to give you grants and loans to buy a house. So I turned to my mother, who was in the the kitchen. I said, hey, that $8,000, that's a lot of money. I said, I'd be stupid not to take advantage of that, thinking at $8,000 was a fortune. So we went out to a tract home builder, and I found a model that I liked and put my deposit down and moved in 8 months later. I paid $71,400, I think, for that 3-bedroom detached house.
And I'm pretty familiar. Was it in Ottawa, Pat?
It was in the east end of Ottawa, in Orleans.
In Orleans, okay. So suburban Ottawa. Yeah, suburban Ottawa. Yeah.
Yeah, back then
would have been really suburban in 1982. It would have been really kind of in the boonies in 1982, right?
Oh, it was pastures back then. Now I just drove out there the other day to pick up a Kijiji item, and it's like totally developed now.
Right. But,
I was working in the government, and back then you could buy a house for about 2 times the government, half-decent government salary, and lots of homes, like a townhouse or a detached house. But it's all gone squirrely since the early 1970s, when Nixon took the U.S. dollar off gold, the gold standard. That's really what's happened. Everybody's looking at what's happening to house prices, but it's really what's happening to the buying power of the dollar. I mean, when I was a kid, you could buy bread for 18 cents a loaf at the corner store. And now I think it's $4 a loaf. So it's not the houses of, actually, if you price houses in gold, I was just looking at a spreadsheet that I have, and it's probably the second cheapest time to buy a house if you price it in gold. So going back to 1980, that's 45 years.
Yeah, which would be great if I had some gold bars in a safe deposit box somewhere, I suppose. But
well, back in 1980,
not a lot. No, I know, not a lot of people do. But look. I'm just curious. So in 1982, 71,000 in the boonies, outskirts of Ottawa, although as you say, it's all developed now. What do you, if that home is still there, what do you figure it's worth? 700?
About 10 times the value. It's 10, 11 times.
700.
You pay about 800,000, I think, for that 3-bedroom home.
3-bedroom home. Thank you, Pat. Okay. Pat thinks it's not the home prices that are going up. It's the value of your dollar that's gone way, way down. Be right back. First Homes on Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, it sure it is. We're talking about first homes today. We're loving the discussion. I mean, we're always going to circle back. What could be done? What's going to happen so that the young Canadian worker of today could be able to buy the same kind of home that was your first home? First Homes, tell us about it. Frank in Surrey today. Hi, Frank.
Hi, how are you, Rob?
Yeah, very good, Frank. Good to hear from you today. Tell me about that first home of yours.
Well, my first home, I bought at the age of 20 with a friend. I couldn't afford it on my own. I'd just graduated from university. And my friend and I each put $5,000 down on a house that totaled $46,000. That was in Surrey.
And what year was that, Frank?
1974.
Okay, 1974. All right. Okay. What kind of house was it, Frank?
It was an older home. It was probably 30 or 40 years old, quite small. It was about 1,000 square feet, if that. And it was on a bit of land. It was on almost 2 acres. At that time in Surrey, there were lots of acreages. There weren't that many subdivisions in those days. And, it was, we could afford it. The interest rates were higher. We took over something which hasn't been mentioned on your show today. We took over an agreement for sale, which is when the previous owner carried it, and you basically paid a mortgage to the previous owner. So we didn't have to qualify with a bank or anything like that. And that, that helped to get into that. And we still needed a small second mortgage, which my parents gave to us at 12% interest. and it worked out very, very well. And then when
look, 1974. I mean, those were inflationary years. 74 all the way to the the early 80s. What was the interest on that mortgage? You basically inherited a mortgage, is how I would describe it, right?
Yeah, that's
this
correct.
Used to happen.
Interest was 10%.
10%.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
10% on the first and 12% on the second. And our monthly payments for the two mortgages were $400.
$400. Wow. Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good.
So,
yeah.
And I mean, all your callers have said many of the same things that my friend and I went through. You had to watch your spending, drive older vehicles, not get fancy things, and have your friends help you when you needed help. And all those things helped to make it affordable. And, you're asking the question about today. We helped our daughter buy a home with her husband in Mission, BC, not too far from where we live. And their new home was $660,000 in 2020, just at the beginning of COVID. And my wife and I took out a line of credit on our current home, which we've been in 38 years, and are holding the mortgage on their place, and that allowed them to buy. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to buy. The banks wouldn't have let them qualify because her husband was a recent immigrant, and they never would have got a mortgage. So we've given them that mortgage. They pay us monthly payments, and they've got a home of their own, and their home is worth about 40% more than they paid for it because prices spiked right after COVID.
Right. Okay. If I could, this $46,000 place that you bought in 74 with a friend of yours, is it still standing?
No, it was torn down about 20 plus years ago, and there's now 12 lots and 12 homes on it. And I did the calculations in my head because I knew you were going to ask this question. I think the value of those lots today would probably be around 12 times about 600,000, about $7 million.
Holy cow. Isn't that something, Frank?
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's unbelievable. And our prices here
that is crazy.
Are very high. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's lot higher than a lot of places, and it makes it very, very hard for young people. And advice I give to them is, get help from friends, get help from family. Don't try and buy a townhouse because your strata fee kills you. And we've got good row houses around here for sale that are a way better deal than getting a townhouse. And and you have to scrimp and save, but it's well worth it. It's the best financial decision I ever made. There's no question about that.
Well, Frank, great to hear from you today out there in Surrey. Yep, good stuff. I hope we can fit everybody in, but we will have to stop here. Right now, be right back with more First Home Stories of the Day here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
How about Bill in Calgary on First Homes? Hi, Bill. Hi, Bill.
Hi, how are you, Rob?
Yeah, good, Bill. Thanks. Tell me about your first home.
The first home, I was roughly 20 years old, and I believe it was around 1969 or 1970. And they were asking for $15,000. I bought it for $13,500.
$13,500. Wow.
I had a little coffee shop I just bought, so it was nearby. That's why I got the little. It was only a 25-foot lot, but it was a good little house. 2 bedrooms upstairs. I developed in the basement, and I developed it a little bit. Put an office and another bedroom there.
Okay.
But back then, I think I was paying $169 a month, PIT.
Right.
principal, interest, and taxes.
Principal, interest, and taxes, $169 a month.
Yeah. And now I'm paying the house I'm living in now. The taxes are $3.25 a month. That's just the taxes. So.
Just the taxes, yeah. Just the property taxes, yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
So
okay. Is that house still around, Bill? Is that house still around?
I believe so. It was not far from Crescent Heights, just almost overlooking the downtown area. I'm not living there now. I'm in a different house.
Right.
But when I sold it for I think $89,000.
Right, and you must have feel like you made out like a bandit after buying it for 13.5.
I did, but I never managed my money good, so it's all long gone.
Yeah, but, sure. I just wonder what that house might be worth now. Do you have any idea?
I don't know. Like I said, it was on a 25-foot lot, but probably be $400,000 or $500,000 for sure.
Isn't that something? Okay. All right, Bill. Thank you. Bill, I'm just going to fit in one more here before we stop. Amy, let's take Amy's call. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Ron.
Yeah, it's Rob. Yeah. Hi, Amy. Good to hear from you.
Hi, I'm
Rob,
I'm a first-time caller, and I want to say that back in 2000, I purchased a 2,700 square foot, 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom, 2-family room home, fully finished from top to bottom. It was only 3 years old. I was a single mother. I pretty well am still a single mother, even though my children are all grown and have children of their own. But I bought it as a conventional mortgage, not under CMHC. And I owned it for over 15 years. So it was because my 4 boys were living with me at the time. That was my first home, and I bought it for $239,900 and sold it for just over $480,000 15 years later because I transferred out west from the east. I lived in the east, and as a single mother, this is what I did, and I was able to do it on my own because I was orphaned when I was 16, and there was no inheritance. There was no monies put aside. It was all my earnings, all the work that I've ever done since I was a teenager. So I was able to afford quite a comfortable home for myself and my family. And I was very grateful for having that opportunity to do that. My mortgage payments on the house at the time were over $700, just a little over $700 a month. And now my 2 little sons own their own houses as well.
Good for them. Look, we're going to have to wrap it up there. You win the prize, though, for most expensive first home, but you bought it in $239,000. And you're the only person that bought their first home for more than $200,000 of all the people who called today.